What's going on, YouTube? It's Big Brother 749 coming back at you with another video. I want to talk about this DC plane crash that happened last week. For those who don't know, there was a mid-air collision, a plane crash that happened Wednesday night between a military Black Hawk helicopter and an American Airlines aircraft near the Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. And the military helicopter was flying more than 300 feet above the river there when it flew into the plane that was making the landing, which killed 67 people. And just a day after this tragedy, Trump spoke at a news conference that was blaming Obama and Biden for their DEI policies, which those who get hard on through DEI generally is every race except white, which Trump was wrong for that because he shouldn't have blamed anything on anybody before the investigation was done and over with. And see, the thing about that is that, when Trump first said what he said about DEI, I never felt so humiliated and disrespected and hated by a president. And I don't know if schools do this now, since it's been a minute since I've been in school, but I can remember being a kid at school where every morning me and the class all had to stand up, look at their American flag, put our right hand over our hearts, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And usually it'll be the principal reading it to us, to where her voice will be coming through the intercom from the top of the wall. And sometimes I wonder about, how little black kids as well as kids of other minorities feel today about the American flag. With all that's going on in politics. Because whenever I see the American flag today, it's not as significant to me anymore. It don't mean shit to me because I don't mean shit to the American flag. Because the American flag represents a country that allowed a racist, bigoted, convicted felon to run for office again. They reelected a man who's not compassionate or presidential at all. Because people lost their lives that night, and these folks, have families, and Trump had no comforting words for the victims or their families. And I've been around folks when they found out, that they lost a loved one, and it's a very painful and sad and uncomfortable thing to witness, as well as to experience. And people lose a loved one. I'm real compassionate and sensitive to that, and that's the way we got to be, especially during these next 4 years, because there's a lot of white folks out here in America who are crazy, diehard Trump fans, giving Trump passes, making excuses for everything he do and say, allowing him to be racist and inhumane. But that's what they voted for, a man to humiliate and disrespect other people that don't look like them. And Trump's been given a license to act this way, and it's just sad and disgusting, just the fact that he was insensitive by blaming DEI while bodies of the victims were still being recovered, and how he wanted to use that tragedy to score political points. And this is basically the start of what's about to come. In these next 4 years, Trump's going to blame everything on minorities and others, to where he's like, this plane crash happened because the pilot must be black, gay, or a woman, and society believe it. But I think the Tuskegee Airmen would firmly disagree that black pilots are bad pilots. Plus, I was just thinking about, Trump talks about DEI and all that, but ain't that how he got in office? Since he's unqualified doing a qualified job, that's something to think about. And I get the frustration some folks may have criticizing the military, whatever. Whenever they watch that footage and see that a military person flies into a plane, landed on schedule at a airport right next to their base, because they're thinking, well, why did the military even go to the path of civilian planes without knowing the schedule, or at least keeping the altitude required? They were at the wrong altitude, because if they wasn't, the crash would have never happened. And I get all that, but blaming, skin color and political affiliation just wasn't going to cut it. Because I'm thinking maybe the air pilot was distracted, maybe the civilian pilot expected the Army helicopter to ship its course, or maybe the controller made a mistake, or maybe the computers or other hardware used in the control tower is outdated, which is probably what it was, because I did read in the New York Post that the Black Hawk wasn't really equipped with new technology that would have alerted air traffic to its dangerous path. But Trump blames DEI, and that seems to be the new thing now, to where false claims were made, even made against some transgender woman who's a pilot named Joe Ellis being the pilot of that helicopter that caused the crash in D.C., which was wrong, to where she had to post on Facebook to confirm that she's alive and she wasn't the pilot. But the Army eventually identified the crew chief and the two pilots who were all white, and one of the pilots was a woman, Captain Rebecca Loback or something like that, from North Carolina, who was 28 years old. But for a few days, the military wanted to withhold her identity, and her family had requested that her name, to not be revealed because they knew that this was a way for Trump and his voters to promote their racism and sexism, by using DEI, as their political belief, and that only mediocre white men should always get the top job. And plus, it fits well with that mega narrative that women belong in the kitchen, barefooted and pregnant, and not in the military. But from what I read about Miss Rebecca, she wasn't no dummy. She had been in the top 20% of the Army ROTC cadets nationwide, and she was picked for a role as a White House aide, and she won awards and all that. And her family had said that she had planned to pursue a career as a physician. So it ain't like, it's just white men who are perfect and super intelligent and can't do no wrong, because white men have made mistakes and crashed aircraft since the beginning. Like, for example, people forget that back in the early 70s, two white male military pilots crashed their fighter jet into a Hughes Airways commercial liner, to where 49 people on that commercial flight, and both of those two white crew members of the military aircraft lost their lives, from that incident. But they want to sweep that under the rug and don't want to talk about that, and only want to criticize women and minorities. And because DEI means women too, and Trump is basically saying that women don't mean shit to this country either. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to turn away his white female fan base. They're going to love him no matter what. But DEI had nothing to do with that plane crash. He only wanted to blame diversity for that because he disliked women and people of color. He had been lying about diversity and people of color, on this plane crash. And Trump's never going to stop lying. He's going to continue to do it. That's why I say, please be careful who y'all listen to, and don't get caught up, listening to all his lies. All you got to do is just ignore the lies and hold the truth. And that's why I say, people, just be careful, because these next 4 years is going to get even more dangerous. But that's all I want to say, folks. This is Big Brother 749 signing out. I'm out. Peace.